Hello and welcome back to my channel, which is dedicated to philosophy, music and art and culture and so on and so forth. I am violinist and philosopher. So, René Descartes and his meditations on the first philosophy. And in the preface, Descartes says that with regard to God, everything accessible to knowledge can be proved by arguments extracted solely from our reason. And it's a very important thesis for Descartes. And Descartes himself considered this work as his main philosophical work. During his lifetime, two editions were published, 1641 and 1642. They expanded one a little bit later. So it begins with a preface in which Descartes formulates two main problematical sphere or two main questions of philosophy: the existence and comprehension of God by the natural mind and natural reason, and the existence of the soul and the moral principles, the ethic as itself. So, the first thought is what can be called into doubt, and to tell the truth, almost everything can be called into doubts. Descartes literally deconstructs reality, comes to a kind of tabula rasa, and however this action should be used with caution, as he says himself, just once in a lifetime, because it's a very dangerous process for our natural mind. And the philosopher found himself in solitude and decided to undermine the entire building of knowledge, and it's a very difficult task. First, feelings deceive, and for example, he says that he sits here in this place, sitting in front of the fireplace, wrapped in a warm robe, and smoothing his manuscript with his hands. And how else could it be denied that these hands and this whole body are his? That is about the closest things, and the feelings are still true, by the way. Second, there are, however, madmen in the world whose brains generously draw these giant hallucinations and dreams and so on and so forth, like that they are kings or glass balls or pumpkins or something like this, but they are sick, they are mad. And the third, let's assume that we are really asleep, says Descartes, and everything just seems to us. But still, even in a dream, the expression draws us something based on real things. For example, something that considered mathematical truths and so on and so forth. They are universal things, for example, spatial extension, and it's so important extension for Descartes, as you know. The fourth is God, who can be a deceiver. That is, from the beginning they decided that everything was created exactly as we know it. Maybe there is no magnitude, no mathematical truths, and no extension, and no reality at all. We don't know about it, we know nothing. However, this contradicts the godness and the greatness and the divinity and the goodness of God. The creation of such an eternally erring creature is contradiction with God's nature, and is there a malicious genius, evil genius, some evil demon, as Descartes he describes, and so-called in French malingenie, So he makes the assumption that it's not the all-good God, the source of truth, but some evil demon, powerful and prone to decide, and has applied all his ingenuity and forces to mislead Descartes and all human beings. And here is this rationalist to leave the question open. It's my opinion, but we cannot find the answer. And the second reflection of the nature of the human mind, that the mind is more known than the body. Descartes wants to find a solid foundation, a solid soil for further thinking, and so far the following turns out. So he admits that everything he sees is false. He assumes that everything that deceitful memory shows him, has never existed, and he is completely devoid of feelings. His body and shape, figura, or eidos in Greek, maybe, extension, movements and place, they all are chimeras or something false. But what then remains true? And perhaps it's just that there is nothing reliable. My feelings and sensations, physically truths, deceive me. It's not even clear yet whether I am myself reliably, or he is himself reliably. And there is, in my opinion, a dialogue with Aristotle. So will I say that this is a living, intelligent being about the human being? And that's very often a description from Aristotle, Zoon Politikon, and the living, intelligent being. No, because immediately after that the question will arise. What is a living being and what is intelligent as such? And so I will slip from one question to many even more difficult questions. And if the whole corporeal reality, physical reality, is just a figment of my imagination, it's just a hallucination, and as a hypothesis, then what remains for me as for human being? Here it dawns on me that thinking exists, and these doubts exist. After all, it alone cannot be rejected by me or by Descartes or by anybody. So I exist, and it's obvious. But how long have I been around? And for Descartes, as long as I think, it's our reality, this mind and this reason, this pure reason. And it's very possible that if every thought stops with me, I will go completely into oblivion, into nothingness, in this minute. So I admit only that it's necessarily true, and namely, I'm only a thinking thing. In other words, I'm mind, so-called in Latin mens, spirit, animus, intellect, and reason, ratio, rationality from this word. Yes, all these are terms whose meaning was previously unknown to me. So I am a true and truly existent thing. But what is the thing? An example with works, it's a famous example from Descartes. Essentially, we feel its properties, of course, as hardness, as weight, texture, aroma, leftover from the smell of flowers. It's a very poetical metaphor or something, or description. But when it is heated, all these properties change. The hardness becomes a liquid, the temperature changes, texture changes. So these are all incoming properties and they are changed. But what remains? Some extent. Okay, but where did all these ideas, imaginary or real, come from? Want my knowledge of myself not only be more true and reliable, but also more distinct and obvious. After all, if I make a judgment that works exists on the basis that I see it, then my own existence is revealed much more clearly, at least from the fact that I see these works. I can be mistaken with the properties of these works. Of course, it's true, but it may happen that what I see is not really works at all. It may also turn out that I do not have eyes with which I can see anything, but when I see or mentally admit what I see, and I do not make a distinction here. Descartes doesn't make this distinction between I see and I think that I see. It's impossible that I myself, as a being, as a human being, the thinker, do not represent something. So I think that's enough for today, and I will continue. Okay, thank you for your attention, and all good to you, good day to you, and see you soon.